Harry snaps at Meghan, "You don't control me anymore." Cracks emerge as he decides their next move. Will this conflict lead to a failed marriage, or will Harry simply be extinguished soon? Let's discuss this right now. And so nice to see you again on the Kate Middleton and the Queen YouTube channel. Okay, folks, so the Duke and Duchess of Hypocrisy's recent trip to Canada to promote next year's Invictus Games really should have been a win for the couple. After all, we could argue that Invictus continues to be by far their most respected and enduring project. However, when Prince Harry and Meghan showed up at a wheelchair curling event in Whistler on the 16th of February, observers were noticing the couple shared a pretty tense exchange. They seemed completely oblivious to the fact that people were around them, and they especially didn't seem to realize or care that media folks were also there to witness the entire exchange. A witness reports Harry looked fed up. He seemed uninterested in whatever Meghan was saying to him. It's hardly a shock that even more cracks are starting to appear between Harry and Meghan. Royal experts have claimed that since Harry dropped everything and ran back to London to visit his father after his cancer diagnosis earlier this month, he seems to be the one calling the shots when it comes to his family. An insider has told New Idea magazine there's definitely been a power shift between Harry and Meghan. He's deeply worried about his father, and yes, also the Princess of Wales, and this has sparked an urge to be closer to his family. So Harry has made it publicly known that he would be willing to spend some more time in the UK to help out his family, while both Charles and Catherine are dealing with their health issues. So that is proof, according to some, that he's taking the lead. Meghan doesn't want anything to do with it and is keen to stay away from England, according to a source who spoke with OK magazine. But Harry is now of the opinion that he must repair the damage that has been caused. Even, it seems, if that comes at the expense of Meghan Markle's support. So what is maybe one of the most telling comments came from Harry himself. It was an interview that he gave to Good Morning America on February 16th. When the journalist, Will Reeve, asked Harry how the trip to London to visit his father had been for him emotionally, his response was, "Look, I love my family." And honestly, folks, that very public statement was almost in direct opposition to the comments that he and Meghan have made about the royal family in all the years since they have left the UK. The source reports that was a clear sign that Harry is taking control of the narrative when it comes to his family. Meghan's beginning to feel as if she's lost control of him. For now, Harry has got the upper hand. Now, I have wished Harry well in his new endeavors in the US, and I still do, but honestly, I feel some degree of pity for him. Before he married Meghan, he seemed to enjoy his life. He was very outgoing. He was always very cheerful. He enjoyed activities like skiing and playing polo. He would fly helicopters, venture into combat even, ride motorcycles across the dusty desert. But most of that excitement seems to have completely disappeared from his life since Meghan entered his life. Another thing Harry so clearly appreciated before Meghan entered his brain was his family. I mean, he had friends from school too, he had his friends in the army, he had people who understood him, people who spoke the same language, shared interests, and could be relied upon to be discreet. These people were putting family and friendship first. So now, who does Harry turn to for advice? Who does he turn to for support? I don't believe that Meghan Markle shares Harry's interests. For example, she's not interested in sports. Would she even consider a parachute jump for charity, for example? And now Harry is so far away from his friends and family. But what is the replacement? It's just Meghan. Meghan doesn't seem to have any relationships with any of her family members aside from her mother, Doria. And okay, I guess Doria is fine, but still, it's a weird thing that Meghan has cut everybody else out. I mean, Harry never even met Meghan Markle's father. They're two kids, they're two invisible children, have to have so many cousins in California, but do they know any of them? Have they ever met any of them? Of course not. At the moment, Harry's life seems incredibly empty, so superficial. I mean, he must feel lonely and bored. And what about that McMansion in Montecito, California? Well, they just had to live in Montecito. Meghan Markle did, at least, because she just had to be close to A-list celebrities because she figured then, I don't know, somehow she was going to be an A-list celebrity too. Oh, look at me. Here I am. I made it. I'm one of you now. We can be friends. Well, it didn't work out very well. And is that what Harry wants? Is that what he needs? I mean, even if these celebs wanted to be friends with them, would that help Harry? No. Harry's also having to come face to face with a very difficult truth. He doesn't have any friends. And now he was, in spite of the fact that he was always a bit of a brat, he was well liked and he was generally happy before Meghan. Now with a social life without the royal family, not being invited to weddings in the UK, for example, not being invited to family Christmas, I'm sure that's painful. But still, Harry needs to realize that he and Meghan are a danger to his own family. So naturally, these circles that were once open to him are slamming shut. Harry said it himself, something like he didn't like Meghan's holiday scene or something like that. Harry just looks miserable all the time, like a pouty little child. Even when Meghan is pulling on him to hold her hand, he doesn't look happy about it. Now, used to he seemed to enjoy it, but now shows a grimace on his face when Meghan does that. I mean, on some level, Harry's got to realize that he supposedly left his family for freedom, and now he's being controlled by a narcissist. Obviously, Harry's life now is sad. I mean, he's got this controlling wife who's always pulling or pushing him to be where she wants him to be. By now, he has to realize the mistake that he made, but unfortunately, it looks like he hasn't got the courage to get out of this toxic relationship. But I still don't understand why he doesn't just leave. I mean, I suspect eventually the truth is going to come out. And whatever Meghan believes she's holding over the royal family, well, that's nothing in comparison to all the skeletons in her closet. And I believe, unfortunately, Harry realizes he can't just return to his old life. There's way too much that has happened. He has treated his family, the family who really loves him, as the enemy. I do remember hearing about William asking Harry what kind of therapist he was seeing and being worried. The problem is he's trusting Meghan completely and her people too, and they're taking him for all he's worth. And I'm not sure if he's ever going to wake up from this nightmare. I guess it's pretty easy to continue to lie to oneself when you simply cannot face the truth. William saying that he has chosen a really difficult path, yeah, I'd say that's an understatement. Remember Harry said he didn't like life in a fishbowl? I mean, look at him now. He's in much more of a fishbowl than he ever was as a member of the royal family. Once he claimed he was controlled by the men in gray suits. Well, now he's got Meghan Markle controlling him. He does not need to put up with her. He chooses to. She has belittled him in so many different ways, and I don't believe he has any confidence now. Trying to make Meghan Markle happy is an absolute waste of Harry's time. His life has spiraled out of control. And divorce is not just going to solve all his problems immediately. It's going to be the beginning, though. Maybe he could actually return to his old self. Harry would have to return to the UK with his tail between his legs, and he would have to eat a really big slice of humble pie. Harry would be a pretty pathetic middle-aged man. And that woman, you know, was going to take him for all he's worth in the divorce. So what would be the best outcome for Harry? Well, as reigning monarch, King Charles naturally is going to have the final say in this matter. It relates to his own son. If he believes that bringing Harry back to perform royal duties on his behalf is a good idea, then technically he could make that happen. But Charles is also supported by other family members, by a small army really of advisors and aides, and also by Parliament. The truth is, King Charles can't keep the monarchy in good working order all on his own. He relies a lot on William as well as Catherine. Both of them are so popular, and the 3 young Wales kids are also incredibly popular. And there's no way William is going to be a fan of Harry coming back to royal duties at this time. I don't believe Catherine will either. Charles is also supported and advised by his sister Anne, the Princess Royal, and her husband too, to some extent, Timothy Lawrence. Now, Anne remains one of the hardest working royals we have, in spite of the fact that she is in her 70s. There's no way she would be happy about a possible return from Harry. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh have also been a lot more visible ever since Edward was given his late father's title. Now, both of them are good, hard workers, and they're mostly unreported, and I really doubt that they would be in favor of Harry's return. In the UK right now, I think honestly, we would be more likely to see Prince Andrew back on parade before we would Harry. He has his problems, sure, but at least Andrew has been convicted of nothing, and he has never really said anything bad about any members of his family, in spite of the fact that he was stripped of his own use of his HRH, his royal duties, the right to wear a military uniform, the right to salute the cenotaph, and basically he lost nearly all of his charitable patronages. The only medals he's allowed to wear are the ones he earned during his service during the Falklands War. And he's also had the king trying his best to evict him from his home royal lodge, but he hasn't complained. Andrew, I'm sure, wouldn't support the return of Harry either. And perhaps most importantly, we've got Camilla. Now, Camilla is the one person in this world that Charles trusts absolutely. She has made him the happy man he is today. She makes him laugh. She brings him back down to earth when he gets a little spacey. Harry has said some very awful things about her. There's no way she would support Harry's return to duty. So I don't believe anybody needs to be worried that all of a sudden Harry's going to be a working royal again. Now, the late Queen needed the support of her family too. Charles and William were so important at the Sandringham Summit. Charles sure could go rogue and welcome back his darling boy Harry, but if he does that, he knows that's all he's going to have. William's not going to be there for him at that point in time, and Catherine will not either. Anne and Timothy, I guess, would suddenly retire, and the Edinburghs, well, they don't need the work that badly. At an absolute push, maybe he could get Her Royal Highness Princess Michael of Kent to show up, but honestly, I don't even think she would do it. Now Charles needs the support of his family more than ever. He's taking time away from duties to undergo cancer therapy. Bringing Harry back would be an absolute catastrophe. The royal family wouldn't support Harry, absolutely not. Most people don't even appear to have any contact with him at this point. Now, the few that still are in contact with him, perhaps Eugenie and Beatrice and Zara, none of them are working members of the royal family. And honestly, out of that list, I think only Eugenie is speaking to him at this point. And what about the citizens of the UK? Well, Harry's already said he doesn't like Britain. He hates the British media. He hates royal duties. And he definitely despises his family. So what use would he be in Britain? Does he believe an appearance in the UK is suddenly going to make things like they were back in 2015? Because it's not going to work. Harry is not going to be welcome in the UK at this time, and he needs to understand that fact.
All right, my friends, I gotta say a few things about this picture. So, when I'm looking at the picture, honestly, more than 1,000 words pop into my head. Look really closely. Do you notice the expression on Harry's face? The look of an idiot caught like a deer in the headlights? The moment he realizes he is face to face with something incredibly dangerous and something that wants him. Honestly, Harry looks like he is staring into the eyes of a great white shark. He doesn't look like he's staring into the face of somebody he loves. The whole show of the super white dress, the very long veil, guests she didn't even know, and only one family member seems like something from a horror movie, if you ask me. Certainly not any kind of romantic film. Additionally, referring to Meghan as reptilian describes the feeling that I often get when I look at her photos. I just can't help it. It's like she's got this facade of beauty, fake attractiveness that hides the real self, a self that is incredibly fake, cold, dark, absolutely scary. The trap was set for Harry by three individuals. A trap of you can have whatever you want. A lot of sex, a lot of love bombing. Well, Harry got sick of her after a little while and he tried to escape. But no, 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 that was never going to happen. There was way too much writing on this. In this photo, you can see the anger in Harry's eyes and on his mouth. And I couldn't help but wonder, what did the three of them have on Harry so that he just had to do whatever they told him to? It looks like Harry is just giving up. You see this hopelessness in his face. And notice the face of Meghan Markle, the veiled face, the succubus who is basically licking her lips with glee because she knows she's got her prince and he can't get away. You can't see a whole lot of Meghan's face, but this really fits in with the history of Meghan Markle being veiled and masked whenever she possibly can, always trying to manage that facade, always putting on a show, always putting on a performance, a real actress. There's always something disturbing going on. I mean, you don't even have to sit in the director's chair. Meghan Markle already has the plot scripted. It's all turned out to be one big farce, a charade, if you will. This woman, the daughter of a con artist, a fraudster who served time, somebody who's already guilty of tax evasion, a grifter, she has managed to pull off one of the biggest cons ever. And I suspect that we all need to give Meghan some extra credit for pulling it all off in front of everybody. As everybody is watching, she somehow managed this scam. If they had an award ceremony for con artists, Meghan Markle would certainly receive the top honor. It's kind of like the opposite of the Big Bang Theory. It's an implosion instead of an explosion. This frozen moment is certainly the downfall, the casting out from the Garden of Eden. And look at Harry's hands, too, so passive. He knows he's already lost control. He is at the mercy of his puppet master, Meghan Markle. I mean, the story of the Carparcles is a really disturbing bastardization of the Isis and Osiris myth. That's exactly what it is. It's essentially just a little retelling, so I'm going to go through it real quickly here. It's an ancient Egyptian story of dethronement, murderous plots, necrophilia, incest, deceptions, jealousy, envy, patricidal conflict, revenge, a war that shows no signs of ever ending, and then rebirth and restoration to a new golden age. Meghan and Harry may think they're so original, but they're not. Their story is something we have seen time and time again. We see the same themes and we see the same tropes being played out in this drama. They are certainly the heroes of their own made up story. They are the legends of the legend, and it's all of their own creation. And the rest of us, well, we're just stuck watching this whole drama play out. Now, when the spectacle wedding happened, I, as a member of the TV audience, was certainly duped. I believed all the pomp and ceremony. I thought they were really in love. I thought, well, good for Harry. He has finally found himself someone to love. I'm glad to see he's settling down. The church service, it was a busy affair to say the least, and it was pretty surreal if you ask me. All this talk of love, all these platitudes, all this saccharine sweet sentiments. Looking back, it was probably scripted for the pastor to deliver it that way, because now we know Meghan Markle loves to have control over absolutely everything. She is quite the dictator. She's got to be the center of attention at all times. She has to be the star of the show. Her narcissism dictates that. So Meghan's appearance in a white wedding dress and veil. At the time when I was watching the wedding, I just assumed, all right, she just wanted to have her moment as a bride wearing all white. I thought this is a royal wedding. Maybe this is what she was supposed to do. I mean, she did look okay. I did notice the dress didn't fit her very well. Maybe it was a little wrinkled, but I thought she paid a lot for it. Maybe this is the look she's going for. And here we are, 5 years later. And with what we know of Meghan Markle and the state of her marriage to Harry, I can't help myself by looking at the above photo, a still from a streaming video of that event, to wonder out loud at Meghan's choice of wearing that virginal white gown and wearing that veil as if this is the first time that Harry's really gotten a good look at her face. Well, as they say, history does repeat itself. So let's think back to old Henry Tudor. He had to find a new wife after the death of Jane Seymour and an alliance with Protestant German princes. So he sent out his representatives and consented to this arranged marriage to Anne of Cleves, judging her appearance and suitability by looking at some portrait sketches of her. He had never met her in person. He had never really looked at her face until his wedding day. Well, Henry Tudor was not happy about what he saw. He didn't find Anne very attractive, but he couldn't really back out at the last minute. The whole wedding had already been agreed upon. So later on, of course, he would end up having the marriage annulled. But history records show that he was married to her for a short time. Well, what about the modern Henry? Not quite the Henry VIII, but he is certainly a Henry. He rushed into this marriage with Meghan Markle, and he did it in spite of warnings from his brother, from his grandfather, and who knows who else. I mean, his grandfather told him one steps out with actresses, one doesn't marry them. How absurd is it, though, that Meghan Markle, the divorcee, was wearing white? She was certainly no virgin. She was certainly no princess. She was no Snow White. What we know about her now, God, how insane. She's a yacht girl. She was in porn films. She was a briefcase girl. She was a bit part actress. She was a supporting actress in a D-list cable TV show. Let's think back to Diana, the late Princess of Wales, and King Charles's ex. Well, when she got married, she certainly wasn't a divorcee, and she was shy, she was young. She probably didn't have carnal knowledge of being with a man. So, of course, she was going to wear white. She actually was a virgin. But Meghan Markle, nah, she's like the village bicycle. Everybody's had a turn. I mean, she was veiled too, like some kind of demure maiden. What a ridiculous sight. Meghan Markle had to have that spectacle wedding. She had to have the veil, the long train, everything she wanted to make her feel like a princess, the carriage ride, the reception with a celebrity she invited from Hollywood who she didn't even know. And all of this really does belie the narrative that we were to find out much later of how Meghan Markle is such a go-getter. She's this empowered feminist. She's an independent, self-made woman who rose from obscurity to become this influencer and powerhouse, and she did it all by herself. Truly a legend in her own mind. Well, Megan, you're not a legend. You have no talent. You are a piece of gutter trash with an overblown ego and these fantasies of becoming queen, but it's never going to happen. You need some serious therapy. You probably need to be institutionalized. You are, to put it mildly, a parasite. You don't offer anything of value to anybody. You just take, take, take. And there's never anything given in sincerity because you're incapable of such a thing. You, Meghan Markle, are a grifter.
4 years have passed since Harry and his narcissistic, evil, greedy wife Meghan Markle stepped down from their positions as senior royals and moved away to California. Visitors to their new website, Sussex.com, may be tricked. Launched on February 11th, the Uniform Resource Locator relies heavily on Harry and Meghan's Duke and Duchess titles, and it even goes so far as to feature the official coat of arms that Meghan was gifted after she married into the royal family. So that, in addition to Harry's response to learning about his father's cancer diagnosis, is not sitting very well with the family. An insider recalls Harry flew to London but only spent 30 minutes with his dad at Clarence's house before rushing off to Las Vegas to present at the National Football League honors. The insider knows that Harry could have easily canceled his award show appearance, but he chose not to. The insider goes on to say the visit came off as more of a PR stunt than a son who was seriously concerned. Now, whatever truce Harry and Charles may have had, it's over. As we reported in the past, Charles and Harry started off 2024 on relatively good terms. So after years of repeatedly trashing his royal relatives in TV interviews, in the Netflix docuseries, and in his memoir Spare, the source explains Harry reached out, adding that Charles was, quote, more than receptive. The father-son bond they share never went away, and they were able to mend things pretty quickly. Prince William, of course, has been feeling betrayed by Harry, and he's not happy that Harry was so easily welcomed back into the fold, according to the insider. But the insider claims that William is hardly gloating about being right about Harry in the end. Quote, William was livid that Harry's trip home to England was so short. It's no secret that he and other royals feel Harry has dropped the ball when it comes to supporting Charles, both in his role as king and now during his health crisis. In fact, the only time Harry really pretends to care about his family is when the family can directly benefit himself and Meghan Markle. The insider says they continue to want the perks of being members of the monarchy, but don't want anything to do with the actual royals. The insider also points out that Harry did not seem to check in on his sister-in-law, Princess Catherine, who is still recovering after abdominal surgery and a 2-week stay in the hospital in January. The source goes on to say it's very sad, and there also does not seem to be a way forward. The insider muses most families, no matter their underlying issues, come together during hard times, not the royals. The fact is, nobody in the UK or in the Commonwealth are dying because the King and Princess of Wales are ill. They're going to get better eventually. All charities associated with the royal family are doing great. Bringing in Harry, and definitely Meghan too, would be a huge mistake. Harry chose to leave. That was his choice, and he has told so many hateful lies about his family since then, and made a lot of money in the process. mean, just imagine bringing Harry back into the fold again. It would be such a bad decision. Harry and Meghan would make absolutely sure that they document every single thing they do. They would turn it into a bestseller with a lot of exaggerations to boot, and they would dine out on this expense for years. Spilling every little detail they possibly could, it would be an absolute catastrophe for the royal family. In other news, Camilla's still working hard, and William has certainly stepped up to the plate. When William showed up to the BAFTAs recently, boy did he look handsome. I'm sure Harry couldn't stand that. Harry's always been jealous of his older brother's looks. A funny little thing to add here, too. Harry and Meghan, as part of their offer to help temporarily while King Charles and Catherine are indisposed, was to offer to take over the BAFTA presentation. Oh yeah, thanks a lot, you two. I can just see the two of them rubbing their hands with glee at the idea of getting to hang out with real celebrities. But see, the A-listers in the US don't want anything to do with them. It just shows how sincere that offer was, goes to show yet again how incredibly self-centered they are. It's all about them all the time. It's all about their image, their reputation, them trying to pretend to be relevant. A really dumb offer because they know good and well William has been president and patron of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts since 2010, not King Charles. So anyway, any senior manager worth anything is going to inform you got to get ready for all eventualities, and you work to your strengths. Harry and Meghan are simply not a strength. Instead, they're a threat, they're a danger, they're a liability, and so they need to be dealt with properly. Sometimes maybe you got to reduce your spread and you got to work with what you've got until new assets are up to speed. But you're never going to rely on your second best to cover a shortfall. Succession planning is a constant in a well-run company, and I'm sure the palace has it all under control. And sometimes maybe you do have to be heartbroken for a little while in order to save your soul. While the actions of Meghan and Harry have certainly broken the hearts of not only their families, but so many people in the UK and the Commonwealth and really all around the world, their behavior has only served to save people they tried to destroy. They have let all of us know exactly who they really are, and boy, are they some disgusting people. The royal family, meanwhile, is doing better than ever. They are even more beloved because of this betrayal by one of their own. Meghan and Harry, though, have only become more and more irrelevant with each passing day. And I understand this has to be painful for the royal family, but it might be time to just move on. They can forgive them, but they can't let the two of them back in. They cannot forget what Harry and Meghan have done. I mean, the betrayal that would come if they were allowed to return is too much to bear. Harry and Meghan have made their beds. It's time for them to reap what they have sown. And it seems like the two of them are completely unhinged anyway. Now, they've always lived in a fantasy world, but that First Nation caper, I mean, come on. I think that just goes to show how desperate they are. They are panicked because they're so desperate to be back in the royal fold, and there's no way back in. Reportedly, their Archwell charity is also under investigation. Harry's also got the visa case happening. The Baka people abused by African Parks charity scandal is happening too. What about their financial woes and the contract failures, Harry's ongoing legal cases, the legal bills? And eventually, they're going to have to face up to this whole scandal involving the invisible children and the moon bump. Their public irrelevance to the royal family, their silence over lies, the allegations in Endgame. Harry and Meghan have a lot on their plate right now, and it's nothing I'd want on mine. Everybody knows that serious illness can disrupt anybody's life, but I don't think many of us would understand why Harry is valuable to the royal family at all. Harry has gone out of his way to prove that he is not valuable to them. He doesn't even like the people who make up the royal family. A long time ago, he also said that he didn't even like Britain. To me, it's pretty obvious. Send him away, don't let him come back. As they say, hindsight is 20/20, and when we think back, we can see that every formal engagement Harry and Meghan attended as representatives of the Queen had so many problems, and problems that were not easy to fix. From the all-night session of banana bread to wanting the whole house of the head of Australia instead of just a suite of rooms. I mean, the problems were there from the very beginning. And remember when Meghan threw hot tea on a staff member because she didn't think the tea was hot enough, and she has refused to meet people she thought she wasn't going to like. The list goes on and on. Whoever put Harry and Meghan in another place working for the now king, that would be the stupidest person in this world, and I don't think anybody is that dumb. I mean, Harry and Meghan have proven that they're not appropriate for the monarchy. They're simply unsuitable. They have shown themselves to be a couple of charlatans. I mean, they claim to be philanthropists, but they only care about serving themselves. And they make such a mess everywhere they go with this look at me attitude. And they're always spewing all kinds of false information with a lot of word salad for distraction to hide the real agenda behind them. And you know what? Neither one of them can lie straight in bed if their life depended on it. They had their chance to be successful. They had their chance to be valuable members of the royal family. They didn't want to. They got too big for their britches. And over again, they were told they were never going to be more important than William and Catherine. Well, they couldn't put up with that. They wanted to be abusive towards the staff. They were told they couldn't do that. So Meghan decided to leave in a huff and take Harry with her. Well, good riddance. The arrogance and the stupidity of the two of them to believe they could just waltz back in after being so cruel, so unkind, betraying the royal family. Of course they can't just be let back in. That really might spell the end of the monarchy. If those two are allowed back in, people are going to decide the monarchy is worthless, that it's too corrupt. And people would probably be right. So it's incredibly important that Harry and Meghan remain on the outside, and I think they will. And I know that right now there is a problem with the number of working royals because after all, the late Queen had so many cousins to help her. So a large court, including Prince Philip, Margaret, and the Queen Mother, were working hard behind the scenes. But still, Charles is doing fine. He's supported by Queen Camilla and his siblings and also William and the Princess of Wales. Now maybe this is going to be a smaller working monarchy, but it's still strong. I think they are all more than capable of dealing with a treacherous duo. The British media should really also unite behind the royal family and stop promoting any positive articles about the traitorous two. Furthermore, William also has many cousins who I'm sure are stepping up to the plate behind the scenes. I would love to see a few of them become more visible supporters too. The entire family, minus those two living in California, are very close, and there's so much love and respect between all of them. Now, Beatrice does a lot of charity work quietly behind the scenes. She's not a media attention hog, though. They have been so involved in charities that focus on dyslexia, scoliosis, because they themselves suffered from those conditions, and other people too. Now, Beatrice has also been photographed at art-related charities. I don't believe any of the cousins should be punished for loving their cousin and hoping that he would return to them. I think they all know that ship has now sailed, especially since Prince Philip and the late Queen passed away. All the cousins, minus the obvious exception, seem to have really rallied around King Charles and William, as it should be. All right, folks, the story I'm going to share with you today is absolutely horrifying, but it needs to be told. And it does relate to Prince Harry. Now, to be fair, nobody's saying that Harry is in Africa, that he's overseeing the day-to-day operations of this charity, African Parks. But at the same time, he has got to understand that when he supports an organization, what that organization does is going to reflect back on him. And in the case of African Parks, it is not a very good reflection at all. The Daily Mail is running an exclusive with the headline, "I was raped by ranger from Harry's Africa charity as I held onto my baby." The full harrowing details of their claims of torture as revealed by Ian Burrell in video dispatch from the Congo jungle. So basically, what is going on right now with Harry's African charity, African Parks, is they are working in these areas that are inhabited by indigenous people. Oftentimes, it's pygmy people. Now, these people have been living in these areas for millennia, basically forever. They do have every right to be there. But the issue is that Harry's rangers, who are working for his African Parks charity, are alleging that these poor indigenous people are posing some kind of threat to conservation. In fact, they're not. But anyway, they're using that as an excuse to commit some really horrific acts of abuse. We get the story of this pygmy family who were just trying to forage for one of their favorite foods, some honey that is considered very important for children's health. Now, this is a food that has been so important to these people for essentially forever. In order to get the food, they have to venture into the Congolese rainforest. And guess who was hiding out in the Congolese rainforest? Oh yes, Harry's Rangers. According to this report in the Daily Mail, this family just went to gather some honey, and while the father was high up in the tree trying to get the honey, Harry's African Parks Rangers came and got them. He said, quote, "After coming down the tree, I was arrested and handcuffed. The 6 guards order the family not to leave the area. Then, after a fretful night in the dark forest, he says the torture started. He goes on to recount the most horrific acts of abuse against him and his family. His children, his wife were also abused by these horrible guards. They were handcuffed, they had hot wax stripped on them. It was so uncalled for, so unnecessary. And the perpetrators were, you guessed it, Harry's Rangers. And again, I'm not going to stand for being accused of saying that Harry personally hired these individuals and that he's overseeing their daily work. Of course he's not. But my point still stands. Harry has got to know what this charity is up to. He has attached his name to it. So if he's going to take credit for its successes, he's got to take the fall for its failures too. And reportedly, that story about the pygmy family going to gather honey is one of many. Ian Burrell writes, this was just one allegation against the armed militia run by African Parks, the fast-expanding charity which Prince Harry helps lead as a member of the board of directors, and which manages 22 protected areas covering 57,000 square miles in 12 countries. He goes on to write, the story epitomizes the problems that arise when conservation groups move in to protect wildlife on land that indigenous people have occupied for millennia. Such is the climate of fear that some were terrified as they detailed the abuse. Many people are scared to talk, said a community leader. The fact is, what these paid thugs at African Parks are doing is also illegal. The family, like the pygmy family who went to forage honey, have every right to be there. They're not doing anything illegal. They are just doing what their people have done for literally millennia. The reason the African Parks Rangers are there is supposedly to stop people from poaching gorillas and chimpanzees and elephants. But people like these indigenous families are not there to kill the animals. They're simply there to forage. Again, it's important to understand, the indigenous people are not the problem. The thugs, though, who are abusing these people certainly are the problem. These poor individuals are traumatized. The man who told the story about his family being beaten while they were trying to gather honey still hasn't even been back to the forest. He is that traumatized. Even though physically his wounds have healed from the beating, the mental scars are still very much there. And now he's afraid to even gather honey for his family. And there are countless stories like this. Apparently, most people in the area don't even want to go into the forest anymore, even though traditionally that's where they find their food, because they're so scared of what these guards are going to do to them. One Baka man, that's the group that lives there, said, you pick a vegetable and the guards say it is food for an animal, so they beat you, which apparently is a real thing going on. Now, there are some limits on what the people are supposed to gather to make sure there is more than enough food for the animals, but still, the forest is plentiful. There is enough food for the animals and the humans. And even if there's not, it's not the fault of these indigenous people. It's the fault of the governments who have allowed for so much destruction of the natural rainforest. The indigenous people are certainly not to blame for that. They had nothing to do with it. I mean, they've always cared about conservation. The forest is their livelihood. After suffering so much abuse at the hands of these guards, understandably, the local people hate them. One man said, the past was far better for us, and the reason is all down to African Parks. It's horrible. I mean, what African Parks has essentially done is made it impossible for these people to find food. And it sounds like Harry has injected some of his signature hypocrisy into this whole charity too. Ian Burrell writes, such stories could not be further from the slick promotional claims of the charity, which launched in 2000 with backing from a Dutch billionaire, and bold talk of adopting a business approach to conservation and alleviating poverty in partnership with governments and local communities. So Peter Fernhead is the chief executive, and he was a guest at Harry's wedding. So he told The Economist that his model depended on a clear government mandate, sound management, and cash from donors like the EU and the American Development Agency, USAID. It's got some major backers too, some billionaires who are supporting this charity. And it claims that within 5 years of taking over a park, the charity reduces poaching by 70% on average, and that it somehow boosts wildlife numbers by 50%. But even if it is doing some good work, it's still facing so many accusations of cruel treatment by the rangers. Now, the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, is facing these same allegations, and it's something that these charities have got to get a handle on. I mean, even if their work is successfully saving a few animals, if it's at the expense of these poor indigenous communities, I don't think it's a charity that's worth receiving any money. So understandably, the local people are calling for Prince Harry to do something. One man said, quote, "What African Parks is doing to the Baka people is horrible." And then he was asked what he would say to the charity's director and former president, Prince Harry. This man's response was, "I'd tell him to stop supporting African Parks. He is a powerful man. He eats well and lives well. But we don't have anything now, and it's all because of African Parks." Maybe he doesn't know what they are doing to our people, but if he was a good person, he'd stop the pain and suffering caused to our community. And he asked a very simple question. Where is the justice for us if everything is stopped by African Parks, even collecting honey? Now, so far, Harry has basically just said that he was going to pass along this information to the CEO and maybe they can do something about this problem. In other words, he's not doing a damn thing. Harry doesn't care. And that's why, if they're going to continue to behave like this, they need to stop calling themselves philanthropists. They need to stop calling themselves humanitarians. They need to stop pretending that they care about anybody but themselves. And finally, Harry does need to stop supporting African Parks. It really bothers me that he's okay with his name being attached to this charity that is committing these kinds of crimes. Compared to the people in these local communities, Prince Harry is a powerful man. So what are you going to do about it, Harry? Usually, my friends, I hope for the best for people. I don't hate anybody, even Harry and Meghan. I'm not going to say I hate them. I might say they're worthless pieces of crap. I might even say I despise them. But if you ask me, hate is a very strong word, and it's not a word that I want to feel in my heart. I don't believe that hateful people are usually happy people, and well, I want to be happy. But I can't deny, I do feel a little bit of schadenfreude whenever I see something happen with Meghan and Harry that is less than ideal. So the latest example at me feeling just a little bit happy at Harry and Meghan's misfortune has come thanks to the creator of Suits. So remember how Meghan Markle was telling everybody who would listen that she was going to be on the new version of Suits. They had created a role just for her, and she was also going to make her directorial debut. Well, let's see what the truth is. We're getting this story thanks to the Mirror. So, the first sentence, guys, is hilarious. Meghan Markle has not been asked back for the upcoming Suits revival. It has been confirmed. And their headline is pretty funny, too. Meghan Markle is not invited back for Suits reboot, reveals star and pal of show's creator. Well, of course she hasn't been asked back. Why would she? She was horrible to work with, and she was never the star of that show anyway. I don't care what she tries to tell us. Harry and Meghan are masters of spin. Revisionist history, I guess we could call it. And it's especially funny that she's trying to rewrite history when it comes to this show Suits that is still being shown on Netflix. It's obvious when you watch the show, Meghan is not the star. Meghan is not the most frequently appearing character. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. She only appeared an average of 1 minute and 37 seconds per episode. That, if you ask me, does not a star make. Aaron Korsh is the creator of the show Suits, and it is true that he is working on a spin-off right now. It's going to be called Suits LA, and it's going to follow, quote, a new cast of characters at a firm on the West Coast. This is news that we have known about for a while now. So all right, good for him. Since Suits has had some success on Netflix, I think this is a good move. People are probably going to watch. It's funny to me, too, how Meghan truly believes that people are watching Suits on Netflix to see her. She really is that delusional. So naturally, Meghan assumed that if they were doing a reboot, they just had to have her. She was going to be asked to star in the show. She was going to be asked to be a director, of course. She's the only reason anybody tunes in, or at least that's what she and Harry tell each other. So, I gotta applaud Aaron Korsh for not falling for this nonsense. This is something Harry and Meghan have done so many times. They just release some kind of ridiculous news item that's not even true, something that they're hoping is going to happen, thinking that somehow that's going to make it happen. That's not the way reality works, and I don't understand why they think that would work out well for them. It never does. According to this report in the Mirror, the Duchess of Sussex is not in the frame at all at this stage for any kind of offers, despite reports suggesting an acting comeback is on the cards. I do love this. For any kind of offers, Meghan, so don't be thinking that you're going to come on as a director either. And again, why? Why would anybody want Meghan to direct anything? Meghan is not a good actress. If she were a good actress, I think she'd do a better job of pretending to be a good person. She's not. She's so incredibly transparent. Playing Rachel Zane on Suits was also by far Meghan's biggest achievement as an actress. Other than that, she just played bit parts on TV movies, I remember there was one, or maybe it was on 90210, that Meghan played the girl who gave somebody a blowjob in the car. This is the type of work that Meghan is appropriate for. The type of work that doesn't really require any acting talent, just requires somebody who's willing to do whatever to make a quick buck. That is who Meghan Markle is. So apparently, one big reason that Aaron Korsh doesn't want to cast Meghan or any of the show's former stars is because he wants the show to succeed all on its own, or at least that's what he's saying. Of course, there's no way of knowing if he really means that or if he just doesn't want Meghan to be on the show, but whatever. I think the takeaway here is what's important. There's no way Meghan is going to be on this reboot. So all of this information is coming from a really close friend of Korsh's named Rachel Harris. Now, she spoke with the Mirror, and she said, well, this is the thing. The only thing I know the truth is that Aaron Korsh, who created the original Suits, I know personally. And of course, when I got wind that they were doing a Suits LA, I was like, okay, so when am I working? And he was very clear with me that no one from the previous cast is going to be in Suits LA. So according to Rachel Harris, he told her as well that she wasn't going to get to be on the show, so it's not just Meghan, okay. But probably Rachel Harris actually has some other job offers coming in, some other opportunities, unlike, the Duchess of Hypocrisy, poor Meghan Markle. Nobody wants to hire her for anything. Why not? She's so amazing. She's so wonderful. Why can't anyone see it? Of course, I'm being facetious here, but see, this is how Meghan Markle thinks. Meghan Markle's level of delusion knows no bounds. So according to Rachel Harris, he didn't say that there couldn't be a crossover or there couldn't be a cameo appearance from one of us at some point. But he said this is its own entity, much like all the CSIs and all the Bruckheimers, right? Where they have CSI Vegas, Los Angeles, on the moon, everywhere. So I feel confident that they want this to soar on its own without any of the original cast. That doesn't mean we won't pop in. Oh, goody. So what? We might get to see Meghan acting again? I don't think anybody needs to see that. Honestly, even if some members of the cast make a cameo appearance, I don't believe they're going to ask Meghan to join. I think the first problem with Meghan would be the amount of money that she would demand. See, Meghan has it in her head that now that she's a duchess, she's entitled to make the big bucks. Didn't you hear she married a prince? Sure, that has no bearing whatsoever on her acting ability, but again, this is Meghan Markle we're talking about. Being realistic, it's not really her strong suit. So the Mirror asked Rachel Harris if she had heard anything from her friend Aaron Korsh about Meghan appearing on the show. So her answer was this, quote, "He has not said anything to me about Meghan popping in. We don't talk about the Duchess. It's rude. She has enough going on. You know what I mean. Let's leave her alone for God's sake, right?" This does seem to be the attitude that most of Meghan's former co-stars have. They don't even want to talk about her. Anytime they are asked about Meghan Markle, they say we don't have her number, we don't have a relationship with her. And then we have that other co-star showing up to talk about the smell at Meghan and Harry's wedding. I got to talk about that just a little bit, guys. This story is hilarious. All right, so this is a really funny story that has been making the rounds recently, and it all goes back to this photo that I'm showing you right now. So this guy, his name is Rick Hoffman, and he was a co-star of Meghan's on Suits, and he went to Harry and Meghan's wedding back in 2018. And even back then, this photo of him was circulated everywhere online because his face looks hilarious. He looks disgusted. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. And at the time, nobody really knew why. Many people were assuming it had something to do with Harry and Meghan's nuptials. Well, he tells us no, that's not what it was. He wasn't disgusted by them. He was disgusted by something very specific. Recently, Rick Hoffman was a guest on the Barstool Sports Chicks in the Office podcast series, and he explained, if you type my name in on Google, you see me making that awful face. So he claimed that he was just trying to stay calm because he was so excited about being there at the wedding. But there were cameras everywhere, he said, and then as time goes on, I'm starting to smell something really terrible and foul. So apparently the smell was so bad that he kept having to stick his hands in his face and smell his coconut and vanilla scented moisturizer just to make himself not want to throw up. He says, I tried to cut it. How can I help getting away from the goofy face? Thank you for allowing me to go on that little tangent. I just couldn't help myself. It was such a funny story. I mean, what was the foul smell? Well, who knows? But was it a sign of things to come? I'd say so. Remember also the fly that landed on Meghan's face? Let's look at that photo right now. I mean, there it is. You can see it clearly. There is a fly on her face. And the weird thing is, she didn't even bother swatting it away. I mean, if a fly landed directly on my face like that, you better believe I'd be brushing it away. I couldn't stand that. But I guess I've not had a bunch of Botox like Meghan has. Maybe the truth is, she just couldn't feel her face at all that day, so she had no idea it was there. And then Harry, well, he doesn't seem bothered by it either, which really begs the question, what do these two have going on a daily basis so that a fly landing on Meghan Markle's face is not a big deal? Well, like I said, folks, there were many signs that day that maybe this was not a match made in heaven, that maybe there were going to be some problems ahead, and boy, have there ever been. So now at this point, of course, we're just all waiting for the whole thing to end. Now, these days, I gotta admit, my predictions that their marriage was coming to an end soon look like they're not coming true. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I wasn't wrong, actually. It's not over till the fat lady sings. And even though they appeared at Whistler looking all lovey-dovey, I don't believe it. There are still signs that there is trouble in paradise with those two. Harry coming back to see his father was certainly an attempt to get back in the good graces of the royal family, which could mean that he is in need of a job because, well, things in Hollywood are not working out for either of them. And I don't believe for one second that Meghan is ever going to wish to return to the UK. I don't believe that she could handle the criticism that she would face. She couldn't handle the boos. She couldn't handle the heckling. And she certainly couldn't handle having to curtsy to William and Catherine. So as far as what's going to happen in the next few months, I don't know. Honestly, at this point in time, it's hard to tell what's really happening with them and what's just a bunch of spin and smoke and mirrors. It is, though, kind of an interesting ride. It's a bit like a roller coaster. One day they're up telling us about how they've got all these projects in the works that they can't wait to announce, and the next day they're back down again, basically going for broke. So what's the truth? Somewhere in the middle, I'm sure, but honestly, folks, at this point, I'm just along for the ride. Okay, and next up, guys, there is another ridiculous piece that I have got to share with you. Now, this one is coming straight from Meghan Markle herself, straight from the Harkle zone, if you will. We've got the headline in the New York Post. Meghan Markle left Kate Middleton with, quote, few people to confide in when she quit royal family. This is coming from an expert. You can hear the air quotes, I'm sure. Okay, so right off the bat, I see a glaring error in this piece. Quote, the Princess of Wales, 42, had seemingly formed a close bond with the Duchess of Sussex back when she struck up a romance with Prince Harry. What are they talking about? She did not seem to form a close bond at all. Meghan Markle was very inappropriate with Catherine from the very start, showing up barefoot, wearing ripped jeans, going in for a hug, asking her to borrow lip gloss. Catherine, understandably, has a very close circle of friends. She's not somebody who opens up easily. She has to be that way. She has to be protective of herself and her family. I completely understand that, and I don't fault her for that. That doesn't change the fact, though, she's an incredibly kind and compassionate person. But still, when it comes to really opening up and letting somebody in, she has to be guarded. So no, I don't believe for one second that right off the bat, she was all besties with Meghan Markle. According to the royal expert Duncan Larcombe, being in the royal family is a lonely place, and Kate's got very few people now, especially after the Queen's death, who she can go to and confide in. He went on to say the fact that things didn't work out with Meghan was a real blow because Prince Harry's bride would have been another person stuck in the same situation. Think back to when Diana and Fergie were always giggling and would help each other let off steam. Kate hasn't got that. He said, I'm sure that the two ladies will be in close contact. There's a definite channel of communication between the Queen and the Queen-in-Waiting. Well, sure, Diana and Fergie were able to enjoy a nice relationship, and they were able to be close because one of them wasn't this raging narcissistic lunatic. Catherine knew from the very beginning what kind of person Meghan was, because it's obvious. Again, this goes back to the fact that Meghan is not a very good actress. As much as she tries to play sweet and kind and coy, she doesn't do a very good job of it. I think most people in the royal family, and especially the women like Camilla and the late Queen too, and especially Catherine, saw Meghan from the very start for what she is, a gold-digging succubus intent on taking Harry for all he's worth. And I do believe that Catherine still has close friends from when she was growing up. She has friends who she has known for years. And even though they might not be in her same position, they might not be royals, she can still confide in them. Catherine has shown us, beyond a shadow of a doubt, she is incredibly loyal. And usually, loyal people attract other loyal people. Jenny Bond is another royal expert, and she has also weighed in on this issue of who is Catherine going to talk to. So she says, quote, "One reason Kate has made such a success of her royal role is because she has a strong inner circle, and it extends way beyond her parents and siblings. But sometimes your oldest friends, who've been with you through thick and thin, are just the ticket. Kate has maintained deep friendships with several of her schoolmates, who obviously knew her way before royalty came her way, so they'll know just how to help." I have a very hard time believing anybody who claims that Catherine somehow has suffered because Meghan Markle is not in her life anymore. I think Catherine could not be happier that the two of them moved far, far away. I mean, sure, before Meghan and Harry got together, Catherine did enjoy a very close relationship with Harry. And I know it breaks her heart to see what has happened to him and to no longer be close to him. But Meghan, no, they were never close. Anybody trying to claim they were, it's just, again, revisionist history, trying to rewrite the narrative to make Meghan Markle seem like something and somebody she's not, trying to make her seem palatable, basically. Well, these so-called experts can go ahead and just give it a rest. We're never going to be fooled. All right, my friends, I am happy to say that I did manage to save enough time in this video for some comments discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about the comments that you left in response to the video. What really shocked Harry during Charles's snub meeting revealed. It's all narcissistic habits. In this video, we were talking about Harry and Meghan's stupid new website and how it really just shows that they're as narcissistic as they've ever been. And we were also talking about this claim that was made in the comments section of the Royal Grift channel, saying that the meeting between Harry and Charles was even worse than we originally thought. Security kept Harry for an incredibly long time, and apparently Charles only talked to him for like 6 minutes or something like that. Of course, we don't know exactly what was said, but it wasn't anything Harry was happy about, and reportedly he was also very upset that he was being treated that way by security. Well, of course, they had to search him incredibly thoroughly because of his history of wearing recording devices and hidden mics and stuff like that. Now, of course, that report is just a rumor, there's no way to confirm it, but I'm inclined to believe it. Now let's see what you all had to say. Okay, the first comment we have comes from a user called Jean Ledoux. Jean writes, "He got the award because of his title, not because he did anything spectacular. What about all the soldiers living with PTSD or missing limbs due to war? We all know that Harry was never in real danger, being protected by the crown. Meghan was never awarded for her acting career because she did not have a career. Grifters is a perfect way to describe them. They deserve each other." This comment has some excellent points, so thank you for making them. You're right about Harry's little medals that he's got on his uniform. Those are just medals that his grandmother gave him. They're basically meaningless. They're basically participation trophies. But again, we have noticed that Harry is a really big fan of picking up participation trophies. He doesn't seem to understand yet that it doesn't mean he's a winner. Anyway, and as for Meghan Markle, well, of course, she was never going to win any acting award. She's a horrible actress. Even that Suits character she played, Rachel Zane, reportedly was kind of written for her. It was because of her husband that she had at the time, Trevor Engelson. I guess he was close friends with the Suits creator, and so they basically got that job for her, and they knew Meghan Markle couldn't really act as anybody except herself, so the character Rachel Zane is incredibly similar to her, or at least who she would like to be. Anyway, as you said, grifters is the best word to describe them. Okay, let's see who the next comment comes from. We've got Sue Clark. Hello, Sue. I always love reading what you have to say. Sue writes, "They are two empty vessels drifting and grifting through the sea of life. No direction or moral compass to guide them. Being perpetual victims keeps them from having to grow up and take responsibility." Oh, so true. And that response to TRG from that user is some hot tea. I find it believable and very encouraging if it is. I couldn't agree with you more, Sue. I love this, though. They are two empty vessels drifting and grifting through the sea of life. Did you come up with that by yourself? Because if so, bravo. You should be proud of that one. We've got some replies, too. YM Ban says, "Grifters, grifting, grifting. It is what they do." Paula's in this comment section too. Hello, Paula. Paula writes, "Miss Sue, if the TRG user response is accurate, that would be wonderful. Hopefully, all the recording devices were found and removed from Harry. King Charles and the British royal family don't need this nonsense. King Charles just needs to rest, relax, and recover from treatment. Prayers for King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess of Wales Catherine, Sarah, and the remaining British royal family. Thank you. I always love your comments, Paula. And I always love how you end your comments with thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for showing that we can still be polite even in today's world. And Sue says, well said. And then Paula, thank you. You have a good week. And then Sue says, you too. I just love seeing these nice little exchanges between you guys. Because sometimes if you look at the comments section on YouTube videos, it's horrible. The way people talk to each other is absolutely disgusting. So I'm really happy that here at least we hold ourselves to a slightly higher standard.
Prince William did what the royals are famous for, keeping calm and carrying on. I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you for the kind messages of support. That's what Prince William said in a speech at a charity dinner on the 7th of February. That was his first official day back at work after Catherine's abdominal surgery, and also his father, King Charles's cancer diagnosis. At the fundraiser for London's air ambulance charity, Prince William even ended his remarks with a little joke. He said, it's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus, so I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all. And that's the kind of attitude that has really allowed the royals to thrive for generations. The Queen would be proud of how well he's managed to compartmentalize everything and prioritize his duties to the crown, according to a source. Now, William has been juggling childcare as well as Catherine's convalescence with his own charity work, and he's also had to take on some of his father's royal obligations. The source went on to say Charles is definitely impressed by how easily William has filled his shoes. While the king's cancer was certainly caught early on, and he has promised that he's going to come back to public duties as soon as possible, the palace is still bracing for a whole new bombshell. The source reports Charles can't help but consider stepping down instead for the sake of the monarchy, meaning William and Catherine will be crowned king and queen much sooner than anyone expected. But what about the Sussexes, Harry and Meghan? Well, on February 6th, Harry rushed to his father's side. To make sure that his future wasn't going to collapse, Meghan encouraged him to find every way to make his father happy. But after spending only a little over 24 hours in London and meeting with his father for about 12 minutes, right back on a plane to Montecito, California, clearly disappointed at having been rejected. But now, with the future of the monarchy resting on the shoulders of William and Catherine, Harry and Meghan are feeling the pressure. Unofficial sources have said that there was the sound of dishes being scraped in Harry and Meghan's $16 million mansion. I mean, obviously, they are feeling worried. Meghan accused Catherine of not supporting her, of rejecting her, and additionally, she threw Catherine under the bus when she implied that she and King Charles were racist with that question about Archie's skin color before he was born that I don't believe was ever asked. Meanwhile, Harry was absolutely horrible to his brother in his memoir Spare. I mean, he made so many accusations that had no basis whatsoever. And now is the time for all the lies to be exposed, according to insiders. William and Catherine's accession to the throne is going to be the end of Harry and Meghan running amok in Montecito. And it sounds like Charles may not have any choice in the matter. The source says he's got a serious battle ahead and he'll need to focus on beating this cancer. Now, the king was diagnosed after a procedure for an enlarged prostate, although palace officials have already said he doesn't have prostate cancer. He is continuing with some of his duties, like reading the famous red box of government papers on a daily basis, and he's also been meeting with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, by phone for now at least. And the source claims that the king has experienced tiredness from all the treatments. The source says, quote, the side effects are a lot worse than anyone knows. And Williams already had to step in and pick up some of the slack. The source notes he's taken more control at the palace, staying in constant contact with Charles's aides. He's basically the firm's point man right now. William and his famously hardworking aunt, Princess Anne, have added a few engagements to their diaries that Charles simply is unable to make right now. Royal historian Ed Owen says William has tended toward less of the day-to-day routine work of the monarchy compared to his father, instead focusing on bigger, glitzier engagements. But now he'll be expected to fill in on many of these more mundane public outings. Meanwhile, Catherine's basically going to have no choice but to hit the ground running. The source reports she's still recovering and isn't expected to be fully back in action until April. Now, the princess had to cancel a series of official appearances when she had abdominal surgery back in January. The source says the timing isn't ideal, but she's ready to step up. They've both been preparing for this for years. But still, their lives are going to change forever. Up to this point, Catherine and William have maintained a pretty normal routine at their Windsor home, Adelaide Cottage. The source says they've been able to pick up their kids from school and enjoy family dinners. But now they're going to have no choice but to spend a lot more time in London, either at their Kensington Palace apartment or eventually it's probably going to be Buckingham Palace, according to the source, because their schedules will be packed. Last year, Charles attended 425 engagements and Queen Camilla picked up 233, compared to 172 for William and 125 for Catherine, respectively. Will still have their passion projects, of course. For William, it's conservation, and for Catherine, it's early childhood development. But according to the source, they'll also have to squeeze in lots of random events from ribbon cuttings to factory tours. There will be a learning curve. And behind the scenes, palace officials are working hard to make sure the transfer of power is as smooth as butter. The source says, considering the circumstances, they won't have an elaborate coronation. William thinks his father's was over the top anyway. The source went on to report William and Catherine don't want all the traditional pomp and circumstance that make them seem out of touch, so it would be scaled down significantly. They'll likely do the religious ceremony and a small reception, hopefully for less than 15 million. So that's in direct contrast to Charles's coronation last May, which cost an estimated $125 million. And of course, it's going to be a bittersweet time for Charles. He waited his entire life to become king. The idea that he won't get to make his mark as king is a hard pill to swallow, says the source. The source noted, though, that Camilla is actually excited about this chance to have a relaxing retirement. The source says she's urged him to let it go and enjoy their golden years. It also helps that Charles has a lot of confidence in William and Catherine, and in the end, he's doing what's best for the monarchy, so he can feel proud knowing he's done his job well. Now, another source has revealed that William has vowed to his beautiful wife, Catherine, we'll get through this together. From managing the children's worries to stepping up at home, Prince William is remaining very strong for his beloved wife during her health crisis. And apparently she could not wait to be home. Spending a couple of weeks in recovery at the London clinic after the abdominal surgery on January 16th was really tough on Catherine, says a source, adding that the future queen was counting the days to return to her and Prince William's country house, Adelaide Cottage in Windsor, at the end of January. The source says obviously she wanted to follow doctor's orders, but she just wanted to get back home so she could sleep in her own bed and be around her family again. Honestly, I understand exactly how she feels, but still, Catherine does have a long road ahead of her. So, Catherine underwent a pretty big operation. The palace has confirmed, though, that it didn't have anything to do with cancer. But she's not expected to be back at work for at least a couple of more months, and likely won't be 100% herself for even longer, according to the source. The source went on to say she's going to have to rely on a lot of help, not just from nurses and therapists, but from loved ones as well. William is obviously worried about her, but he's doing everything he can to stay strong for Catherine so she can focus entirely on her health. He's assured her that they will get through this together. And for William, that has meant trading in his royal duties for parental responsibilities. While their long term nanny, Maria Teresa Turion-Barallo, is still a very important part of their staff, Catherine, quote, is usually very hands on, doing school drop off and pick up as much as possible, helping with homework and making dinner for the kids, says the source. According to the source, William doesn't want to disrupt their routine, so he's been trying to handle a lot of that himself. But because the crisis came on relatively quickly and Catherine's recovery will be slower than he realized, it's caused him some stress and panic. He's also had to deal with some very hard questions, not only from well-wishers, but from his own children too. According to the source, they know their mom's situation is serious, and it's been really scary for them. And William had to deal with his grief over the passing of his mother, the late Princess of Wales Diana, in a very public way when he was only 15 years old. And according to the source, William is doing his best to manage their fears while also sharing his own feelings in a way that perhaps his own father didn't do so well. He knows from Catherine that it's critical he handles this situation delicately for their emotional well-being. And of course, Catherine knows all about mental health in young children. She has based her entire charity platform on exactly that topic. The source says she hasn't been able to see the kids much while she's been in the hospital, but even over FaceTime, she's so much better at reassuring them than he is. Well, we wish Catherine and King Charles a very speedy recovery indeed. And now comes the end of this video. So please like and share and subscribe to Kate Middleton and the Queen channel to get more updates. Goodbye, and I'll be back to see you in the next video.